Cut a chrysalis open at exactly the wrong moment, and a butterfly does not fall out. Soup does. A living creature mostly turned to warm liquid that would pour right over your fingers if you tipped it. That little green case under the leaf, the one that looks like nothing is happening inside, right now in there a caterpillar is quietly dissolving most of itself on purpose, and a few days later out of that same puddle, a butterfly climbs into the air and flies away. That's the part I can't get past. If the inside really does melt down to soup, how does the soup ever fly? How do you get from a puddle to a working wing to legs to a pair of eyes that can actually see? Something in there has to live through the meltdown. The whole mystery is figuring out what. So tonight we climb inside the case and watch it happen. It's stranger than the tidy version most of us got in school, and it's a lot gentler too. Let's start before the shell. Let's start with the caterpillar. A caterpillar is basically the eating stage of a butterfly or a moth. That's its whole job. It hatches out hungry, and it spends its days chewing through leaves, growing and chewing some more. It's a soft little tube with a very good appetite. But here's something you'd never guess by looking at one. That caterpillar is already carrying the butterfly inside it. Not as tiny wings, not as little legs, as instructions, as a hidden cargo of special cells. Very early on, before the caterpillar even hatched from its egg, its body set aside little clusters of cells and tucked them away. Scientists call them imaginal discs. You can think of them as tiny sealed packets, each one holding the plan for a single adult body part. One packet for a wing, one for an eye, one for an antenna, a leg, a mouth. While the caterpillar munches leaves, these packets just wait. Quiet, patient, carried along like seeds that haven't been planted yet. And there's a thread I want you to keep an eye on through this whole story. Somewhere in the caterpillar's life, a single strand of silk gets spun, an anchor, a thin, softly glowing line. Hold on to that line. It matters more than it looks. Now, before we go inside, let's clear up something that trips almost everyone. It certainly tripped me for years. A cocoon and a chrysalis are not the same thing. Our title says cocoon, so let's be honest about it. A chrysalis is the pupa itself. When a butterfly caterpillar is done growing, it wriggles out of its skin one last time, and the fresh skin underneath hardens into a smooth case. That case is the chrysalis. It isn't something the caterpillar builds around itself. It is the caterpillar in a new sealed form. A cocoon is different. A cocoon is a silk blanket. Many moth caterpillars spin thread around themselves and wrap up in a soft silk casing, and the pupa sits protected inside that. So the cocoon is the wrapping. The pupa is what's wrapped. Here's the simple version. Most butterflies make a chrysalis and skip the cocoon. Many moths spin a cocoon around their pupa. Same big idea, two different coats. And notice that silk we've been following, that quiet thread, this is where it does its work. For a moth, it becomes the whole shelter. Either way, once the case is sealed, the real transformation begins. And this is where things get almost hard to believe. Inside the sealed case, the caterpillar does something drastic. It releases enzymes. Enzymes are the body's tools for taking things apart, the same kind of chemistry that digests your food. But now the caterpillar turns those tools inward on itself. Bit by bit, most of its old body comes undone. Muscles, tissues, the shape of the caterpillar it used to be, most of it breaks down into a thick, rich liquid. A soup. This is the moment from the very beginning. If you cut the case open right now, that soup really would ooze out. It sounds like destruction, and in a way it is. But it isn't waste. That soup is packed with nutrients, with the broken down building blocks of the old body. It's less like throwing a house away, and more like carefully taking it apart into a neat pile of clean bricks and lumber, ready to build something new. For a long time, that's where the textbook story stopped. Caterpillar goes in, turns to goo, butterfly comes out, as if by magic. But that story has a hole in it, because if everything truly melted, there'd be nothing left to do the rebuilding. Soup doesn't organize itself, so scientists went looking for what survives, and they found that the meltdown is not as total as it seems. Here's what doesn't dissolve. Remember those little packets, the imaginal discs? They come through. They're so committed to their job that the chemical signals swirling around them barely touch them. While the old body melts, the discs stay whole, floating in that nutrient soup, like seeds sitting in rich soil. And they're not alone. A few years ago, scientists used a special kind of scan, a bit like a medical CT scanner, to look inside a living chrysalis without ever opening it. They watched a painted lady change from the inside over days, and they saw structure the whole way through. The breathing tubes, the fine network of little pipes that carries air through the insect's body, didn't vanish. They stayed, and actually grew and widened. The gut stayed too. It shrank and folded up, but it was there the entire time, and parts of the nervous system carried through as well. So the old picture was just too simple. It was never a case of everything turning to featureless liquid. It's more like a building being gutted while the plumbing, the frame, and the wiring are left standing, ready to hang a whole new structure on. And through all of it, that thread of silk is still there on the outside, holding the case in place. The old self, not entirely gone. Now the building begins, and this is the beautiful part. Those imaginal discs, sitting in the soup, start to grow, fast. The nutrient soup is their fuel. It's a bit like the caterpillar dissolved its old body so it could feed the new one. Take a single wing packet. In a fruit fly, one wing disc might start as only about 50 cells. By the end, it can grow into more than 50,000. From a tiny cluster you could barely see, into a full, veined wing. And this is happening all over at once. Wings, eyes, legs, antennae, each packet drinking in the soup and unfolding into the part it was always meant to be. And here's a gentle thing worth saying clearly. There were never little finished wings floating in the goo waiting to be found. The wings weren't hiding in there. They were being built right then out of the caterpillar's own remade body. There's also no decision in any of this. The caterpillar doesn't know it's becoming a butterfly. It doesn't choose the moment. The whole thing is run by hormones, by chemical signals. One hormone keeps it in caterpillar mode, keeps it eating and growing. When the caterpillar has fed enough, the level of that hormone falls, and that drop is the signal to begin. No wish, no plan, just chemistry, keeping quiet, perfect time. Slowly out of the soup and the surviving frame, a butterfly takes shape. And now the part that genuinely surprised the scientists who found it. If most of the body melts down, you'd expect the caterpillar's whole past to melt with it. A clean slate, a brand new creature with no history at all. But maybe not entirely. In one careful study, researchers worked with moths, with tobacco hornworms. They taught the caterpillars to link a certain smell with a mild, unpleasant little shock, so the caterpillars learned to avoid that smell. Then they let those caterpillars go through the whole meltdown and become adult moths, and the adults still avoided the smell. Something they had learned as a soft, crawling caterpillar had survived the great dissolving, and was still there in the flying moth. Now, let's be careful and honest here, the way a good friend would be. This was one landmark study, and it was in moths, not butterflies, even though the headlines often blur that. And it only worked for lessons learned later in the caterpillar's life, not the very earliest ones. Younger caterpillars didn't carry the memory through, so this isn't a settled rule that every butterfly remembers its whole childhood. It's an intriguing, still unfolding finding. Scientists are still working out exactly which parts of the brain and nervous system are kept and which are rebuilt. But it hints at something lovely, that a thread of the old self can cross the meltdown unbroken. There's our silk thread again, still holding. So, let's go back to that quiet case under the leaf. And the question we started with, if the inside really does turn to soup, how does that soup ever fly? The answer is that the soup was never truly formless. Hidden inside the caterpillar from the very start were tiny packets of cells, waiting all along. The breathing tubes, the gut, and part of the nervous system rode through the whole change. And so, it seems, can a memory, a faint thread as who this creature used to be. The caterpillar doesn't so much die and get replaced, as come undone and rebuild itself from the inside out, using its own body as the raw material. And that thread of silk we followed the whole way. It's the perfect little symbol for all of it. Something quiet, something you'd almost overlook, that never quite lets go. So the next time you see a butterfly drift past on a summer afternoon, you can know that it was once a soft green thing on a leaf, that it melted almost all the way down and built itself back up, and that somewhere in that gentle, unhurried creature there may still be a whisper of the caterpillar it used to be. The world is quietly full of things like this. We just don't usually get to look inside. Oh, one more thing. If the world feels a little more amazing than it did 10 minutes ago, There's a subscribe button right around here somewhere. Go on, give it a gentle press. There's a new calm little mystery like this one waiting for you every week.